Thank you so much, Doctor. That was a very, very powerful and enlightening presentation. We're now going to begin our live Q&A. Before we begin, we'd like to make sure that everyone knows how to connect with you and follow you on, through social media, et cetera.
Connect to me?
Well, just kind of like follow your work. Not
to follow my work, I have not gotten into social media, I confess. I do a lot of podcasts. You can Google me. You can search for me on the internet. You'll see the Joe Rogan show and the Lex Fridman show and a lot of stuff. And if you want to email me, you can email me. I want to say that what I'm talking about is in my book, Sickening. And I would implore you to read it. This tells the story. It's been blacklisted. I shouldn't say that. For some reason, the mainstream media has not covered this book. And you need to read this. Right now, I don't think there's anything else like this out. If you can't afford this book, write to me and I will send you a manuscript, a PDF manuscript of the book. And you can just write to me at my email address, johnabramsonmd@gmail.com. And I'll send you a PDF. But it's just so imperative for you, for your children, and for your children's children that we start to make progress on this problem.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So thank you for sharing that. So we will now begin the Q&A session. We will be asking questions of the presenter. And if the audience has questions, we'll open it up to them as well. We will first just explain to everyone how this works. We don't take questions directly from chat. Instead, we ask everyone to virtually raise their hand. If you're not sure how to do this, what you need to do is click on the reactions button, second from the right at the bottom of the Zoom window, then click on the raise hand function in the menu that pops up. When I call on you, I will unmute you and ask you to state where you're from and to ask your question. And we ask that everyone keep their questions brief and on topic. So let's see here. So I'm going to ask you some questions to start. So you went into obviously the issues with clinical trials, and yet we're told. Sorry for the beep. We're told that they are unbiased, gold standard for accurate and honest information on the results of perfectly designed drug trials. Then we're told the medical journals carefully check them over again before publishing the results of them. How does this not get out? How does your message not become public? And what exactly is? That's basically the question.
Okay, so I think the short answer, Michael, is that the distribution of information in general society has a lot to do with the distribution of power. And this story, some of this story is available. Much of it, you have to be devoted. I've been devoted to this issue for 20 years, 24/7. I have worked 7 days a week for many years. What's happening is that the criteria, this idea that knowledge is defined as a justifiable belief, and what's happening is that not just doctors and other healthcare professionals, but the public at large is being trained subtly in the paradigm, like learning a paradigm, that the sources of information bring that impeccable clinical trial study and bring that impeccable write-up in the journal and bring those impeccable guidelines to you and your doctors so that you can have the best medical care in the world, when in fact the longevity of Americans is now what the longevity of 10 other wealthy countries was in 1987, and we're spending 10 times, 12 times more per person to achieve that. And we're not even allowed to have this discussion. So I just have to thank you and Stephen Shore and all the folks who are putting on this conference for allowing, for giving air to this problem, which is, I believe, the largest problem that the United States is facing, not just in health and healthcare and quality of life, but it's going to bankrupt us. We're going to default on our debt. And there's $2.3 trillion a year leaking out of our healthcare. It's craziness. And we've got to realize that what we think of as knowledge, as a justified belief, is we've been trained to accept the criteria of belief that aren't trustworthy. We've got to transcend that. It's hard work. That's why I wrote this book. And again, if anybody can't afford it, I'll send you a manuscript. I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this to try to help people understand information that we can't get out over the airwaves.
Okay.
Oh boy. Hello?
Hello, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Yes, I am from California. My question is, what do you know about Zoloft and Trazodone?
Well, Trazodone is an earlier antidepressant. It's been on patent forever. I think it was on patent, went off patent sometime in the 80s. Zoloft is one of the newer generations of antidepressants, which is a serotonin uptake inhibitor. Trazodone, most of the use of Trazodone when I was in practice in the 80s and 90s was for a side effect of Trazodone to help with sleep, which it does pretty effectively. The serotonin uptake inhibitors like Zoloft and Prozac and the other drugs help about 1 out of 4 people who are suffering from a major depression. Major depression is a serious illness. People with major depression aren't able to function in normal life. They don't want to leave their house. They want to stay in bed. They don't want to get involved with normal social relationships. They don't want to go to church or their social affairs. That's a serious problem. And if you have a 1 out of 4 chance of helping somebody, I think it's a good risk to take. But the antidepressants are not, the serotonin uptake inhibitors are not effective for moderate or mild depression. Yet they're used, the vast majority of the drugs are used in that context, and particularly for children. I mean, we know that there's a risk of suicidality. That slide that I showed you about Pfizer saying they own the data and they're going to use it for marketing, that came from a case of somebody who had committed suicide while taking Zoloft. The suicidality in adults, it looks like it's a risk. I don't want to comment one way or the other. I don't think the courts have firmly determined this, but there is a suicide risk in kids, and that's really serious, and that hasn't been made public. I mean, there's a big movement to diagnose kids as depressed or having other disorders for which the serotonin uptake inhibitors would be helpful, and the increased risk of suicidality has been minimized, especially in kids and adolescents.